So I'm a little late reviewing the Kamen Rider Kuuga Blu-Ray, but I still have my own thoughts on it. In addition to that, between 01 and Kuuga's Blu-ray releases, Kamen Rider licensing got insanely convoluted. Let's talk about it. And we'll also talk about the Blu-ray. But most importantly, convoluted licensing. It's morphin' time! Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome to my video that's half Kamen Rider licensing convolution, half Kamen Rider Kuuga Blu-ray review. I just didn't feel like doing a straight review on this when there's a lot to talk about, as Kamen Rider as a whole is trying to expand globally, I think. I'm not too sure. But Kuuga did come out this past September, and while I was going to review it, it took its time shipping from Shout Factory, like 3 or 4 weeks, on top of my 5-man DVD getting lost in the mail, but that's for a different video. But I did finally get my Kuuga Blu-ray in October, and by the time I got it, I was busy doing this thing called Month of Monsters. You may not have heard of it because it seemed like YouTube hardly recommended it to people, and if you love monsters, go check out that video series. I worked incredibly hard on it. It was 31 videos in October. But anyways, if you're here for the Kamen Rider, well, Kamen Rider Kuuga came out. Basically, I got it while I was doing Month of Monsters work, so it got pushed back. And then it got pushed back into November, where it would be in the video schedule, but I had some other things I wanted to talk about. And then I was hearing some rumors of an upcoming release and decided to wait because I realized that Kamen Rider licensing got insanely convoluted, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to run it down. And my definition of fun is losing my mind a little bit, so we're going to get to it. But before we get to the convolution of the madness that is Kamen Rider licensing, let's talk about Kamen Rider Kuuga's Blu-ray and find out if it's worthwhile. Alright, so let's look at the Kamen Rider Kuuga Blu-ray release. Now this is the, sort of more standard release that we've gotten for Kamen Rider. This is bare bones. This is just the show. Kuuga does not have that much supplementary material. There was a Hyper Battle video, which likely can't get licensed outside of Japan due to the magazine publisher that it was included with. And then there was a little bonus thing that was included, I think, on the original DVDs. It's not in here, but otherwise, it's complete, minus the director's cut of episode 1 and 2, which is a bummer, because I really like that director's cut, but there may be some licensing things with home video companies in Japan that we don't know about. I will, however, not complain about that, because getting the whole show of Kuuga is great. I will complain about this cover, because what the hell is this? This is a common promotional images of Kuuga on the Tri-Chaser 2000, and you can see that, yeah, it's a promotional image, and then they just add this smoke effect. Is Toei so strapped for assets that they don't have anything better for their licensors, or does Toei just not care to give their licensors good assets? This looks ridiculous. The 01 Blu-ray, which I think was great, because first of all, you have, it's the poster for the show. That makes sense. You got 01's logo in English, which is matching the Japanese style of the logo. And then we have this, where the block text, standard stuff, and then the Japanese logo is just pasted there. This just feels like a massive downgrade, especially with the gray complete series banner across the top, whereas this woved into the design. This doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't. There's something lacking in the visual presentation for Kuuga versus 01, and considering it's the second release, kind of sucks. Yeah, the backs are mostly the same though. But yeah, it's just, there's just something about it that just lacks, like, cool factor, because it looks awful to me. It just looks awful to me because it looks like it's just a really rushed Photoshop job. This doesn't look like a final cover. Ironically, the Shout Factory store exclusive poster has this much better cover, which, yeah, it's just Kuuga's head with that same block text logo, but, like, I don't know, it looks better. It's the same smoke effect, but it doesn't look so Photoshoppy. It looks more like an official cover for something. And this is the actual poster they use on Tokusatsu, so I don't know why we got this thing for the Blu-ray, but, well, let's talk about what's inside. What's important. The important part here is that it does have all 49 episodes plus subtitles with and without Grongi translations. When the show was uploaded to Tokusatsu, it was uploaded with the Grongi translations on, because, yeah, Tubi and other services that it's on don't have subtitle toggling. So it had to be burned in, and they chose to have the Grongi translations. That's a whole debate, because essentially the monsters in Kuuga have their own language, and by watching the show without knowing what they're saying, it adds to some of the mystery and intrigue. It doesn't really change the show that much in the long run, but It is a whole debate that was had, you know, a couple years ago when this first was streaming, but now we have the option to watch it either way. Personally, personal opinion, I think you should watch it without the Grongi subs the first time and then watch it with the Grongi subs the second time, because it's really kind of neat to see these villains not understanding what they're saying, because it makes them a lot more intimidating. And then it's kind of fun to see what you did and didn't get right about what they were saying on the second go around. And Kuuga is a show good enough to watch twice. Anyways, 7 discs for the 49 episodes. That's perfectly good. They're the same art on all the discs. And then you also get on the inside here a nice shot of Kuuga. You know what? I know he's not doing anything but just standing there, but I would have preferred that on the cover. Because it just looks, it has, you know, let's take it a step further. Let's pull it out of the case here. Let's see. I really do like that image of Kuuga there. It's got a coolness factor to it. It's not super dynamic, but it would have fit really nice on this cover. And it would have just added, I think, to the overall presentation. Anyways, complaints of the packaging aside, are the discs good? Does it look nice? And are the subtitles as cool as they sound? Let's take a look. So the good news is there's no loading issue like the 01 disc. This just loaded straight away on my PlayStation, which is good to see. Here's the subtitle options. You have English without Grongi, English with Grongi. Without is the default. You also have the option to turn them off, which is different than 01, which was hard-coded. Overall, the picture and audio quality is what we saw on Tokusatsu without the interlacing problems. The video quality is definitely an improvement there, and it looks really nice on the Blu-ray. The subtitles are also really good by being back-bolded, so that allows them to be seen no matter what they're up against. In terms of the Grongi subtitles, when a character speaks in Grongi, it does say in Grongi above the line they're speaking. That way you know it's not Japanese they're speaking, which I think is a great distinction. I would have probably preferred different styled text, but this honestly works pretty good to give it a nice clean look. And overall, I mean, the show looks as good as it can be. It definitely is the Blu-ray source from Japan, and the subtitles, I think, do a great job, making this for a pretty solid release. Now, lastly, before we talk about Kamen Rider's convoluted licensing, do these look good on a shelf together? Of course they do. They're made by the same company. I just wanted to point this out. As much as I complain about the cover art, the logos are about in the same spot. You got the Rider up the top, you got the discount, and then you got the name. It lines up pretty good. You can also see that this was Shout Factory release year 2022, disc 189, and then this is Shout Factory release year 2022, disc release 883. And if you're wondering why I'm pointing out these numbers, stay tuned for my video about Sentai DVDs. Subscribe for more. There's more coming. But anyways, these two sets, they do look nice together. They have about the same size case, which is always pretty cool. And I think that, in general, Shout's releases will look pretty nice on the shelf together, even if the cover is not so good on Kuuga compared to 01. So the Kuuga release is pretty great, but it's certainly not the only release of Kamen Rider in the West. And by the West, I mean US, Canada. As much as I would love for Kamen Rider to be released more officially in Europe, in Latin America, in other regions, or hell, even Mexico, that seems to get left out of the North America part of this, US and Canada is pretty much where most of this is coming from. There are some things that are available worldwide, but unfortunately, Kamen Rider is still Japan, Southeast Asia, US, Canada, with a couple things trickling out to the rest of the world. And that kind of sucks because Kamen Rider's global expansion is slow and messy. Essentially, the thing I wanted to talk about is while we have awesome Blu-rays coming out of Shout Factory for Kuuga and 01, they're not the only ones releasing Kamen Rider on home video, nor in fact the only ones releasing them to streaming. I wanted to run down everybody that has an active license for Kamen Rider. Now, this does not mean that anybody's active license negates somebody else's chance of releasing something, but let's talk about everywhere you can officially, legally watch Kamen Rider or purchase Kamen Rider if you legally live in the US or Canada. That's a really small part of the world. Anyways, the point is we have a few different licensors because Toei has decided to not partner with a single company for Kamen Rider. It seems like if you got money and you got a request, Toei will just let you license it. So any media companies out there, you want to get in on this? Go for it. Apparently their doors are open. With other franchises, such as the Super Sentai releases through Shout Factory, no one else is trying to release Sentai. And with Ultraman being pretty much exclusively through Mill Creek, in terms of Tokusatsu, Kamen Rider can go to anybody. And it basically has. So here's what is currently available for streaming and home video for Kamen Rider. So all the way back in the early 2000s, Generation Heatkider's V3 DVD, which is still in print and still purchasable from Generation Heatkider's website. Technically, they can only sell it in the state of Hawaii, which is why you can only get it directly through them, but that is still a valid option for V3 on DVD, which is kind of amazing, because it was actually like the first official Kamen Rider release. Who knew? But in terms of more modern things, Prime Video has Kamen Rider Amazons, Seasons 1 and 2, listed under Amazon Writers, which is just dumb. And they have the recent Kamen Rider Black Sun. Now, all of these can be viewed globally as long as you have Prime Video. This is probably because Prime Video produced these shows in Japan, so it's not so much licensing it from Toei, but just releasing the thing that they helped pay for the production of globally on their streaming service. And Black Sun, while it had a hiccup of you couldn't search for it in English for like 2 days, you can still watch the entire thing now, whereas Amazon's, that took like an extra year or two to come out, which was kind of a bummer. But Black Sun was technically our first simulcast Kamen Rider live action series, which is pretty cool. But none of these have Blu-rays, and I don't know if they will, but at least they're legally available on Prime Video for streaming. Now for Shout Factory, they have the most amount of Kamen Rider licensed. The original Kamen Rider series is streaming on Tokusatsu, Tubi, Pluto TV, and Amazon Prime Video if you buy the Tokusatsu or the Shout Factory TV add-on platform. There is no currently planned Blu-ray release, but that is currently streaming. We have, of course, Kamen Rider Kuuga on Blu-ray, as well as streaming on the same platforms. Kamen Rider Ryuki has been streaming on Tokusatsu, Tubi, Shout Factory TV for a while, but it has just gotten a confirmed Blu-ray release for February 7th, 2023, which is pretty exciting because, hey, we're getting another Kamen Rider show, and it's not as big of a gap between Kuuga and Ryuki as there was between 01 and Kuuga, which is good to see that there is some momentum going. Adding to that, the Kamen Rider Ryuki episode final film's director's cut will be included in that same Blu-ray, but it is currently not available for streaming, but it wouldn't be surprised if it pops up, you know, sort of around the time of the Blu-ray release. They also have Kamen Rider Heisei Generations Forever streaming on, I'm just going to say Tokusatsu, and you guys can figure out the rest. That movie has not got a Blu-ray release, though I imagine until they do something like Geo or Build, it wouldn't be released, because it would seem to be bundled in Blu-ray-wise with something else. And of course, we have Kamen Rider 01, which has already released the Blu-ray, which was the first Shout Blu-ray, and it is streaming, except for the compilation specials, which are exclusively on the Blu-ray. Real Time and 01, the series, are streaming, so there's options there for those. Now, Toku HD is the parasite that won't die. It's a pretty terrible platform, honestly, and I'm not exactly sure how they license Kamen Rider Agito and Faiz. They technically still do have the license to those. They're technically legal, but I think they went through back channel means. As far as I've heard from a few people that have worked in the industry and may know things, it sounds like Toei doesn't really acknowledge the Toku HD releases for Agito and Faiz as kind of official releases, that they really aren't going to worry about stepping over somebody. So hopefully that means with, you know, Shout Factory having released Kuuga and releasing Ryuki soon, Agito will get released in between those because, well, yeah, it just would be better than having it on Toku HD. Now, Toei Tokusatsu World is Toei's official global YouTube channel, which has some restrictions per region, but essentially the idea is to have like a bunch of Toei shows up there, mostly to entice licensors. It's not so much for the viewing experience. A lot of these get uploaded at 360p or 480p tops, even if they are an HD production. But if you want to, you can go on YouTube on Toei Tokusatsu World and find the first 2 episodes of every Kamen Rider show from Kamen Rider to Kamen Rider Revice, as well as the movies Kamen Rider versus Ambassador Hell, Kamen Rider V3 versus Destron, Kamen Rider Birth of the 10th, which is the Kamen Rider Zaycross special, the 2 Kamen Rider Black movies, Hurry to Onigashima and The Phantom House of Demon Pass, Shin Kamen Rider Prologue, Kamen Rider Zeto, Kamen Rider J, Kamen Rider Double, A to Z Guy, Memories of Fate, and Kamen Rider Movie War Megamax. So those are all available, but those are mostly just there to go, hey, you know, here's a sampler of Kamen Rider, hope somebody licenses it for you. Media Blasters had announced a Blu-ray release of Shin Kamen Rider Prologue, Kamen Rider Zeto, Kamen Rider J, Kamen Rider the First, and Kamen Rider the Next, but we haven't heard anything in about a year. I'm hoping that's still happening, because I really do love Media Blasters movie releases. They did such a great job with Zayram and Zebraman and Hakaider that I'm hoping that they will also be able to do those movies. I imagine the deal's still on. It's just probably taking them longer to get 5 releases prepared. And I think they also said they wanted to do a box set, which is different for Media Blasters. I also know the company has been struggling a little bit because They sort of are a mix of 18 plus content as well as niche tokusatsu and horror films. And 18 plus content is now banned from Right Stuff, like they're not selling it anymore. So they had to sort of set up their own website for it. It's really complicated, but that's like a whole different discussion. So maybe Media Blasters is working on the Rider releases, but they may have put a pause because of managerial things. They're a small company and they're trying to like adapt to a changing landscape of the home video market for Japanese media. And then lastly, the two other most recent licensors, Crunchyroll licensed Futo PI, the Kamen Rider Double anime sequel, which I would love if anything on Crunchyroll said Kamen Rider, because if you go on Crunchyroll, if you hear there's a Kamen Rider anime on Crunchyroll and you search Kamen Rider, it doesn't come up. It should at least be in the description to pull it up. But yeah, Futo PI, that's streaming on Crunchyroll. I think that's in most regions. I don't think it's totally global, but it's in most regions. And then finally, the recent release of Kamen Rider Black from Discotek Media, which is coming sometime in 2023. So this is our current state. I don't know if this is more than just a recap, because I think it's kind of important because it's everywhere. Rider is like all over the place. Would not surprise me at this point if Crunchyroll were to release a Blu-ray of Futo PI outside of just streaming it, since they seem to do that with a lot of the shows they pick up licensing for streaming, and they'll also do home video, especially now that they've absorbed Funimation into their giant conglomerate of anime monopoly. But essentially, there's a lot of Kamen Rider. There's a lot on streaming. There's more on Blu-ray. The fun part is that while the Shout releases look consistent for Kamen Rider, obviously the Generation Kikaider release looks different. The Media Blasters releases will look different because it fits with Media Blasters. The Discotek release of Black will look like the Discotek release of Black because they fit the companies that they're made from. So while we're going to get a bunch of Kamen Rider on disc, hopefully in the next year with those 5 movies with Black, and then also, of course, Ryuki, and hopefully more, it's going to look a little weird on a shelf because you're just going to get like a mixture of packaging styles. And luckily, it seems like so far, I think V3's DVD is going to be the only DVD out of that. Everything that's been announced for Ryuki, Black, and the movies are all Blu-ray, so maybe we can get all Blu-ray. In Japan, all the Kamen Rider material is on Blu-ray for the shows and the movies, so there's no reason not to do Blu-rays of these for anything. There's HD transfers of all of it, so why not get everything on Blu-ray? And that'll probably be the biggest accomplishment, even if it's a little weird. It would be nice if companies like Discotek could do Black RX as well, so there's some consistency there. If Shout does the original Kamen Rider, it would be nice if they could do V3, X, Stronger, and Amazon, just because those are lined up shows. And it would be nice, of course, like I mentioned, that, you know, they got Kuuga, they got Ryuki, if they can get Agito, Faiz, I mean, maybe the Heisei and the Reiwa stuff could go to Shout. It's not going to be something I think Toei's going to be like actively going, oh, you can only take this show, you can only have this show, we want you to have this era, and we want you to have this era, because they've already broken it by Discotek having Black, which I'm really excited for, because Discotek just does a lot with their releases. You can check my recent video on their Gavan release to kind of get an idea of the really good quality there. But it does mean that it's going to be a little bit disruptive in terms of the overall collection. It won't be as clean as the Mill Creek Ultraman releases, which is a bummer, but at this point, any Kamen Rider we can get is good, right? As long as the releases are solid, at the end of the day, the packaging is not going to matter to me too much, especially, you know, when I'm complaining about Kuuga's cover. The packaging is ultimately what it's put in. For me, it's spines, because it's what I'm going to be looking at most of the time. And as long as they look decently enough on the spine, it'll be fine for me. It would be nice to have one company release everything, but it just doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. So let's just accept the disparate releases and just kind of figure out how we're going to put it on a shelf together. It's ultimately, at the end of the day, I think Kamen Rider is trying to expand, and as it tries to expand, it's just gotten a little messy while doing so. But we'll see what the future holds. You know, Kamen Rider seems to be slowly building, you know, but then again, it seems to be kind of like 3 steps forward, 4 steps back on everything they do. So who knows? But hey, Ryuki's coming out in February. Black's coming out sometime next year. Hopefully Media Blasters gives us some details on those Kamen Rider films. But that's about it for now. So stay tuned. You want to subscribe and hit the notification bell because I'll be doing a video on the Sentai DVDs coming back. There's a lot of stuff to talk about with those. They're very, very complicated. But we got more home video stuff for Tokusatsu and other topics on the channel, as well, of course, Tokusatsu toys and other things, plus different types of topics on the channel, such as Star Trek, Sonic the Hedgehog. We do all kinds of things around here. It's a nice variety. Also, be sure to hit the like button and leave a comment down below telling me what you think of the Kamen Rider currently available releases. Is it too messy for you, or are you just kind of used to it with some other anime franchises doing similar things? Also, be sure to check me out on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Soundout12 if you want to follow up the conversation outside of YouTube. And if you want to continue the conversation during a live stream, I do a live stream every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So check that out because we usually do a lot of topics and discussions. Also, be sure to check out Hero Club at hero-club.com for Kamen Rider news and more, and my awesome graphic designer on Twitter at darkclaw643. And until next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.